Yes, hello, good evening everyone. Good evening, Lawang Northern Samar.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Tacloban. Good evening, Philippines. To
Mm-hmm.
every part of this nation, Philippines. And good
Yes,
morning, good afternoon to some other parts of the
of the
world.
world.
And this is your coach,
I'm
Pressy.
Coach Aryen.
And you are now tuning into
Kingdom
Kingdom Talk
Talk.
Philippines. And we
Yes.
thank you and we welcome you for joining us for tonight in this program, Kingdom Talk, because
Yes.
for tonight we will have our guest.
Mm-hmm.
So his name is Sharice Brian Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
So I am inviting you and I am encouraging you to stay with us for another hour of this program, Kingdom Talk, and let's
Yes.
learn and grow together.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, a name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in love to those around me.
May I have the honor to introduce to you our guest. So our guest for tonight is no other than Sir Sharice Brian Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sir Sharice is more than 30 years of experience studying and applying leadership in the United States Navy. Wow. Working with for-profit and non-profit organizations and raising 3 children, Brian Ruth decided it was time to share the lessons
Mm-hmm.
he learned. His desire is to help others unlock their leadership potential so they can have a greater impact.
Yes.
Brian is an experienced consultant and speaker with the breadth and depth of experience needed to quickly understand leadership challenges and craft the right solutions for his clients. So, my dear Co-Kingdom citizens and ambassadors, let us all welcome Sharice Brian Root.
Yes. Okay, Coach.
Okay, so he is
for
running
the
for-
opportunity to speak to the folks in the Philippines.
Yeah.
My wife and I got to spend 4 weeks over there this summer doing some leadership training at a power plant in the province of Sarangani. And that was certainly an honor and a privilege to be there and to see your beautiful country.
Oh.
Leadership is what we do. It's what we are very passionate about
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of reasons. Probably need to bring you through some of the background in order to help you understand why we're so passionate about leadership and
Yes.
why we teach a leadership model called the climbing down
Mhm.
leadership model. We're all conditioned to climb up, yet we're teaching a leadership model that says you should be climbing down.
Mm-hmm.
So let me bring you quickly through some background, and then we'll talk a little about this leadership model and what we teach when it comes to leadership. We believe that everyone is wired to lead and to manage.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, in that verse, God gives man rulership or dominion. That word dominion contains the ideas of leadership and management and governance and mastery of skills. So we believe that God did create all humans the same but unique. The same in that we all have the ability to lead and to manage.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we tap into that ability, but it's within us to lead and to manage. So that's the first piece of background. The second piece is this concept of world. One of the most common verses in the Bible is John 3:16. In that verse, it says that God so loved the world. That word world in the Greek is the Greek word cosmos, K-O-S-M-O-S, and it means organized or governing systems. So God sent his only son in order to make sure these systems he created, God, created in order to deliver the kingdom through would be salvaged. And to do that, he had to save us.
Yeah.
He had to save humans. That word saved or salvation comes from the same word as salvage. It's almost like thinking of at least in the States, we would call it a junkyard, where you might have a bunch of old cars that don't run anymore. And God sent his son to take those cars and put the mirrors back on and the wheels back on and a new paint job so that we could each deliver our uniqueness.
Yes.
We said we're both the same and unique as human beings.
Yes.
The same in that we're all wired to lead and to manage, unique in that we have unique gifts that God has given us. So he saved us, humans, in order for us to go into these systems that he created in order to deliver the kingdom.
Yes.
The last piece is in John 17:4, where Jesus, still alive, says to God, that I glorified you on earth because I completed the work you gave me to do. Glory, again, is the Greek word doxa, D-O-X-A, and it really just means full weight. It's like if you write on a notepad and you push hard enough and you flip the pages up, you'll see the imprint on the subsequent or the pages below. That's the concept of full weight. Jesus saying that everyone saw you, God the Father, through me. Why? Because I completed the work or the assignment or my purpose that you gave me to do. So when you wrap all that together, we believe that all of us have the ability to lead and to manage, but many of us don't tap into the leadership side. The management side tends to be more natural and more normal, and it tends to be the thing we learn first.
Yes.
But without tapping in the leadership side, oftentimes we don't tap into that potential, that unique potential that God has given us to deliver back to humanity in order to glorify him. So my wife and I started a leadership organization about 18 months ago called Employment to Deployment.
Oh.
We didn't start it just so we have a really long email address, although we do have a really long email address now. But we didn't start it because of that. We started it because of the two words, employment and deployment. Employment is a job. It's something you're paid to do. It's the value someone else puts on your abilities. Deployment comes from the military. It's a military term. Then it really means mission. You could say purpose. You could say mission. The number 2 is also a very unique number in that when you look at it from one direction, it shows unity, as in the two shall become one. But when you look at it from the other direction, it looks like division, two visions. So it's depending on how we look at our employment and our deployment. Many people, I think, see their job as something they have to do and their purpose as something they want to do, but the two are disconnected.
Yes.
We don't believe they have to be that way. We believe they can be connected.
Yes.
That your employment and your deployment can be the same thing. We believe, again, the reason that doesn't happen for a lot of people is because they don't tap into the leadership side they have. And without the leadership side, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but without the leadership side, they don't have the ability to see the possible, what could be. All they really see is what is in front of them. It's a little bit the difference between vision and sight. Sight is what I can see in front of me, what I can physically see. Vision is what I can imagine.
Yes.
So we teach leadership primarily, not because it's more important than management. We try to make that very clear. We think leadership and management are equally important, but different. I don't know when it happened, but I think leadership and management for many people have become two sides of the same coin. They're not two sides of the same coin from our perspective. They're two separate coins, equally important coins. And if we can figure out when to use each one, maybe you want to call them tools, when do I use the right tool for the right job, will be much more effective.
Yes.
So we spend quite a bit of time in our leadership seminars helping people understand the difference between leadership and management. Most people understand management because it's very much task driven. And you learn to manage typically before you learn to lead. That's normal and natural. When you have little kids, and we have 3 young grandkids, they learn to manage. They learn to pick up their toys and clean their room and feed themselves and do the basic management tasks that any human needs to learn how to do. That's great, and that's normal and natural. The problem is we oftentimes never transition out of management into leadership.
Yes.
In other words, we leave our leadership potential that was given to us by the Creator untapped. It's in here, it just isn't active. So we try to help people activate that. The first thing that we try to help people understand is the difference between the two. And the best example we've come up with for that is a nautical example. We say that pointing the ship is a leadership function and making the ship run well is a management function. So leadership is about direction and management is more about execution. If you point the ship in the right direction, but it doesn't move, it stays dead in the water or stationary, that's not very effective. It's equally not very effective if you point the ship in the wrong direction and it runs very well. Your ship will go a lot of places, but it just won't go to the right place.
Yes.
So we try to help people understand we need to both have the right direction and the ability to execute.
Yes.
We do that by talking about 3 types of organizations. These are not structure, but how organizations function. Those 3 types of organization we call a balanced organization, one where everybody in the organization is doing some leadership and some management. Not in the same amounts all the time, not 50-50, but doing some leadership and some management. We then talk about organizations that are over-managed and under-led. We use over and under because you're doing the right activities, just too much in the case of over, or you're doing the right activities, just not enough in the case of under. So we use over-managed and under-led. That just means most people are managing and very few people are leading. What's the downside with that type of organization? Well, you just won't do the leadership functions, whatever those leadership functions are for your organization, they just won't get done. There is another organization, which would be an over-led, under-managed. A lot of leadership, a lot of direction, but not a lot of ability to execute.
Yes.
Typically, at least in the United States, those types of organizations tend to be startup organizations where 2 guys have a good idea or 2 people have a good idea. They start some company and they can see the picture of the future. They can see the benefit to society. They just can't figure out how to deliver it to the marketplace. There's a lot of leadership, just not much management. You don't see as many of those types of organizations. Clearly, overmanaged and underled is the most typical organization we see. Once we kind of get through all that, then we try to really kind of hone in on this idea of leadership. Again, not because it's more important, because I think it's less understood than management. So we spend the time on leadership. To do that, then we have created a model that we call the climbing down leadership model. We have a book coming out soon. I should get the final proof this week. And it is called Climbing Down: How Leaders Descend to Their Destiny. It's supposed to sound a little funny because I think we have to change the way we think about leadership if we're going to change the way we behave. We know that thinking drives behavior.
Yes.
If you want to be transformed, you have to renew your mind. So if we want to change our leadership behavior, we have to change our leadership thinking.
Yes.
Part of that is we have to think more about climbing down as a leader, not climbing up. The reason that I started wrestling with this whole idea of climbing down was because it didn't make sense to me when I would study leadership 25, 30 years ago, and I really got interested in it, that you would climb away from the people you're supposed to be leading. I climb to the top of the leadership ladder, and then everybody I'm leading is down at the bottom. That didn't make any sense. It seemed like you should be climbing toward the people you're trying to lead. So that was one. Clearly, if you model any leadership after the greatest leader ever, Jesus, he clearly climbed down. He went from his location in God's kingdom, and he climbed down to earth in order to lead us. So, and if you look at the way Jesus led, I think you'll see that the model we teach is very similar to what he did. In other words, we modeled our leadership, our climbing down leadership ladder after what we think Jesus was doing. Certainly he was the greatest leader ever, so why would you not model something after him?
Yes.
So this ladder, it looks like a ladder. It's shaped kind of funny. I keep doing this with my hands because that's the way the ladder is shaped. The top rung is the longest and the bottom rung is the smallest of this leadership model we teach. And it has 5 rungs or 5 horizontal members of this ladder. Those are the stages of leadership, and they come from a guy that you may have heard of. His name is John Maxwell. So I didn't make up these stages. I just use his stages because they make sense and they work. His 5 stages of leadership that are position, which for us is the top rung. Again, we're climbing down. So position is where you start, and then permission. The third one's production. The fourth one is people development. And the fifth one is personhood. John Maxwell now uses his 5th rung, is now called pinnacle, but he also uses his model is you climb up his model. So pinnacle makes more sense because it's at the top. For us, we're climbing down. So we use his old language, which is personhood. And then the rails or the side of this leadership model are how you move from one rung to the next. The last piece that you have to recognize in this leadership model is there's leaders on one side and followers on the other side. We have to wrap our head around the idea that leaders don't choose their followers, followers choose their leader. You can hire your direct reports, you can hire the people that work for you, but you don't get to pick who follows you. You can have people working for you that are following someone else. Why? Because you've not given them any reason to follow you. So on our leadership model, leaders on one side and followers on the other side. The leader does something, but if the follower doesn't do something connected to what the leader did, there is no movement on the ladder. So the followers have the final say, so to speak, in whether there's movement on our leadership model, whether you actually climb down this ladder or you stay at the top on the position rung of the ladder. I'll give you just a couple of quick examples of how this ladder works in the movement, but I first want to drive home again this idea of climbing down one more time. We say that when it comes to leadership, your visibility and your value are inversely proportional. In other words, as visibility is high, value is lower, and as visibility goes down, value goes up. They're not directly linked, they're inversely linked. The challenge is when we're managing, visibility and value tend to be more directly coupled, and then when we put our leadership hat on, visibility and value are inversely connected. We sometimes say it this way. If I was to take a Ferrari and park it out in front of my house, it would be pretty visible because in the neighborhood I live in, there's no other Ferraris. But if I took that same Ferrari, let's say it's red, and I park it in an exotic car lot with Maseratis, other Ferraris, Porsche, some other exotic or high-end cars, it would be harder to pick out the Ferrari, my red Ferrari. Why? Because I've elevated other cars around the Ferrari. I hadn't changed the power, the color, the features. I haven't changed any of those things. I've just elevated other cars up around it. That's the idea of visibility going down and value going up. As I become more complete as a leader, as I climb down this leadership ladder and become less visible, because at the bottom of a ladder, it's harder to see me than it is at the top. I'm elevating people around me. I'm developing other leaders. So it's no longer just me leading. I'm surrounded now by a bunch of people leading. It's harder to pick me out. I'm still leading. I'm not abdicating my leadership responsibility, but with other people elevated up around me, it's a little harder to see me. So my value goes up. Why? Because I have other leaders around me now. And as we go back to the initial thing I said, the goal here is to balance leadership and management. And to do that, I have to develop other leaders so they can both lead and manage. So that's, again, the idea. I'm trying to drive home this idea of climbing down because it's so different than what, at least in the United States, we're conditioned to think. So that's why I'm driving this home a little bit. Let me give you a couple examples of how you move on this leadership model. So if we're on the position rung of the ladder, and the position rung simply means people follow you because of the position you occupy. You haven't done anything to gain followers. They're simply following you because they have no other choice. Given another choice, they'd follow someone else.
Yes.
What does positional leadership look like? Generally, it's connected to power. Positional leaders like the power that comes with their position, so they hang on to it. You're going to find out pretty quickly on our leadership model that empowerment shows up pretty quickly, or giving power away shows up pretty quickly. So if you want to hang on to power, you're likely going to stay a positional leader, which is the infancy of leadership, the beginning of leadership.
Yes.
If we want to move from position to permission, on the leader side, it's about authentic storytelling. We do that in order for the follower to trust us. So on the follower side is trust. Why do we use the term authentic storytelling? Shouldn't we use mission and vision like everybody else? Well, we define authentic storytelling as a picture of the future that's better than your present reality, and it's told with originality or authenticity or believability. So we're painting a picture that's better than where we currently are. All right, so there's really kind of four concepts. One is present reality. You have to know what your present reality is to paint a picture that's better than that. There's authenticity. That really just goes to believability. We say believability is a head thing and trust is a feet thing. Or sometimes we say believability is the precursor to trust. You believe first and then you trust and then you actually move. We use story instead of mission and vision, and we just define story as mission plus vision. So we take mission and vision, we put them together and we call it story. Why do we do that? Well, as I said, I got some young grandkids, and they always want stories to be read. Why? Because a story takes a young child someplace they've never been. They have a pretty sheltered existence, and a story takes them someplace. Takes them to a place called Africa, or takes them someplace called the Philippines. They see animals that maybe have long necks, or they see fish that they've never seen before. That's exciting. That we can do the same thing as leaders. We can take our people someplace they've never been, someplace better, exciting, safer than where they are today. The other reason we use stories is because we need people to find their place in the story. It's not good enough just for us to talk about things. We need people to participate with us in getting us to where we're trying to go. Story is much more conducive for somebody to find their place in. It's hard to find your place in a mission or a vision. The last piece of authentic storytelling is the telling piece. It's the connecting piece. And we say, if you can connect, then you can communicate. If you talk to any kind of professional speaker, the last thing they're thinking, or the thing they're thinking about right before they go on to stage to speak, is connecting. They know their message. They're comfortable with their message. They know if they can connect, their message will land where they want it to. If they can't connect, it won't. We do all that authentic storytelling, in order to gain trust. Why? Well, trust, if you look at the word and its etymology or its original root words, it comes from words that mean a safe place, or a place of refuge, or a place of protection. So we're trying with our authentic story to take somebody to a safer, more protected place. Maybe not physically protected, although we want our our employees or our followers to be physically protected, but a place where their ideas and their experiences are also protected. In other words, they can bring their ideas to the table without worrying about what's going to happen to those ideas. Those ideas will be valued. Their experiences will be valued. That's a better, safer place. That's why trust, authentic storytelling, yields trust, hopefully on the follower side, and it moves us down to the next rung called permission. So this model is very logical, we think. In other words, all you have to do is evaluate where you are with an individual or with a group of people. And then you say, if I'm a positional leader, if I don't think there is enough trust, then I need to tell more authentic stories. If I have told authentic stories and gained trust, and I'm on the permission rung of the ladder to move from permission to production, we say on the leader side, it's about taking inspired actions, and on the follower side, it's about empowerment. So again, if I find I'm on the permission rung where I have some trust and I want to keep going, then I know it's about this concept of inspired action and this concept of empowerment, which we teach in a pretty tangible, touchable way. So what we've tried to do with this climbing down leadership model is make sure that people recognize we're all wired to lead and to manage. That's the way the Creator created us. We have to tap into it. We have to activate that potential, but we haven't. So that's number one. Two, we try to make sure people recognize they can deliver leadership into any of these organized systems, into any of the world that God created. Could be business, it could be church, it can be family, it could be education, it could be entertainment, it could be any of those places. You don't have to just lead one place. You can lead in all of those areas. And our model teaches leadership principles that are applicable in all those different worlds. The last thing we have to recognize is we are uniquely gifted. And our job as humans is to find our gift, develop our gift using or develop the skills to enhance our gift, and then deliver that back for the betterment of humanity. Again, without tapping into our leadership side and seeing the possible that's not currently happening, it's not present reality, but to see the possibilities, that's a leadership idea. So we think you need to tap into that. In order to do that, we said we need to create a tangible and touchable model that will make sense to people, whether you're a business person, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're an educator, whether you're an entertainer. It doesn't matter. This model is touchable, tangible, understandable, and again, patterned off the greatest leader ever, Jesus Christ. So that's what we've done. We delivered this training kind of as I laid out to the power plant, Serengani Energy Corporation. And really went over very well. They were excited about the uniqueness of the idea. It is a very unique idea because, again, we're conditioned to climb up. But I think it really connected with the folks at the power plant, and I think we can connect it with a lot of different people. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to explain that a little bit, and certainly could answer any questions if you have them.
Wow, it was a powerful message, sir. It is full of principles. As I keep on hearing what you have said, I was tempted to take some notes, but I rather to listen it again so that all the principles that you have shared in this program today, I know that I will learn more from you. It's very powerful principles and very practical, sir. That the one that you have shared with us.
I'll do one better. I'll send you a book when it's published here in a few weeks. So.
Wow, thank you very much, sir. I know that. Wow, the Lord really is equipping me and preparing me for such a time like this in our time.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you very much, sir. I know that it's running late right now in your time, and we really appreciate. Thank you for allowing Kingdom Talk through the highly recommendation of Sir Carlos to have you in this program. Thank you for allowing us to serve you through this platform that we have.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hopefully I didn't disappoint. I know Carlos probably said better things about me than he should have, but hopefully I didn't disappoint, and I really appreciate the opportunity. We very much enjoyed being in the Philippines. We were there, love the Philippine people, and look forward to coming back.
Yes, sir, and praying someday in the future you can visit in my area, in my place, and we are excited for that, me and Coach Pressy.
Very good, very good.
Wow. So thank you and bye-bye for now. So Coach Pressy, that was a powerful message of Sir Sharice Brian Roth.
Yes, that was really very powerful teaching about leadership, and I believe that everyone have learned a lot. That if we really want to help other people, we have to climb down
Yes.
in the ladder.
We need to climb down. That's a
So
very
it's
powerful
very,
statement, Coach Pressy.
it is different from what we call the
Leadership.
leadership in the world right now.
Because
in the world,
we just allow people to come to us instead of the leader climb down so that he can reach those
Reach.
people.
It's-
Just like what the great leader, Jesus Christ,
yes,
Jesus
What he
Christ
did.
climbed down. He came from heaven. He reached us so that he can bring us all into the top, Coach Pressy.
Yes, that's right. And that's the reason why pala, Coach Ariel,
Mhm.
we always heard the word see you at the top,
Mhm.
because we are really touching lives.
And we need to help people
Yes, help them
so
to
that we can
grow.
bring them up to the top, Coach
Yes,
Pressy.
and to develop themselves
Mhm.
and let them be lifted up.
Very much. This is Coach Ariel.
And this is your Coach Pressy, and we'll be saying God bless, more kingdom favor, and have a great night, everyone. And kingdom salute.
Kingdom salute to
everyone.
everyone.
Bye for now, and we love you guys. See you again this coming Friday here on Kingdom Talk.